what you hear is lead pastor screws up again. What a joke. They're all hypocrites. And you very rarely hear about like lead pastor screws up, admits it, is forgiven by congregation, and becomes a better person as a result. Like you don't hear that story.
Yeah. Welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together. My name's Clint.
Welcome back. I'm Tony.
Today I want to chat about forgiveness and the act of giving an apology.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I wanted to was just thinking about, say what you will about whether this is genuinely happening, like the cancel culture. But just a few notable people have issued apologies for things and asked for forgiveness.
Oh yeah, Rogan
What
got
does that
slammed,
look?
right?
Right, exactly.
Yep.
What does that look like for a society to like accept forgiveness as a collective, or is that something you can even do? Is it just individuals? But then even you, the listener, I invite you to recall occasions where you have apologized for things, where people have done that to you, and just kind of like remove all preconceptions. I genuinely don't have an agenda. I don't really have any super well-formed thoughts on this. I'm sure there are books out there on the philosophy of forgiveness that I could have prepared and looked at that, but I didn't. So this is kind of just shooting from the hip and trying to make sense of this phenomenon that we partake in. Hopefully, I mean, well, maybe that remains to be seen,
I guess.
But it's traditionally been associated with the good life, with virtue.
Yeah.
It's you're a more moral person if you were to ask people for their forgiveness.
To err is human.
When you've done wrong.
Yeah.
So where to dive in? I don't know if just me bringing it up, if that stoked anything in you.
Well, I'll say this. I have found, grown up hearing about forgiveness all my life because I've been in church.
It's a central part of the Christian faith.
Big part of the Christian faith. It's like, hey, you've been forgiven, so you should go and forgive other people. And there have been a few times in my life when I've experienced a hurt or what felt like a betrayal or something where I have been frustrated with what felt like my inability to forgive. Like there was a part of me that recognized I'm supposed to forgive. Like I know that as a good Christian lad, that's what you're supposed to do is forgive. And maybe even part of me that wanted to, like, I just want to be done with this. I want to stop dwelling on it. I want to stop stewing. I just want to release this person and be done. But found that despite my best efforts, it was not a one-time deal for me. It wasn't like, okay, I did that thing. I forgave. And now I never have to think about that hurt again, or I never have to forgive again because I just did it. For me, and I don't know how that's played out in your life, it's any given crime or offense, I have found might need to be forgiven many times by me. So the very same offense, I am repeatedly invited to forgive. Like, I don't know if that makes sense or if that's how it plays out in your life too, but I like the idea of it being a one-time thing. You hurt me, I forgave you, we're fine.
And so let's rip the Band-Aid off of the annoying philosophy question of what is it?
Yep.
What is forgiveness? You said the word releasing.
Release, yeah.
Can you say
I'll try.
more about that?
I'll try. This is one of those things where, like time, you know what it is until you start to talk about it, and then you're like, hang on.
Yeah.
Actually.
That's what this is for, really.
Is it even a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think about forgiveness, I think about, okay, it's at least this. I'm giving up what feels like, and we can maybe talk about whether or not it is a right. I'm giving back what feels like a right to get even with you, or to punish you for what you did. Because I have that instinct too. Like someone hurts me, the very natural instinct is hurt them back or retaliate in some way. Forgiveness has to be at least giving up the retaliation or something. In my more Christian moments, I might use language like entrusting this person to God to do what is right and to ultimately bring about justice, and not taking it on myself to try to enact justice or retribution, however we want to frame that. There's some kind of giving up my position as ultimate judge about what they did and entrusting that God might be able to make all things right in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would hold something similar, like the releasing. I more thought of it from, my own stance as judge, or from my own predilection to view them as lesser for what they have done.
To hold something against them. We use that expression.
Yes.
That would be to remember somebody's wrongs and what?
Then you have not forgiven, I would say.
Yep.
Right? If you still hold it against them,
yep.
you think lesser of them as because of what they did, or no. I don't
think less of them. No, it's got to be like, at least for me, when I'm holding something against somebody, I am sort of giving myself permission to be less than excellent to them because they've been less than excellent to me. So if I'm holding a grudge against somebody, I might be tempted to be just a little more curt in my replies than normal, or there'll be some little bits of venom hidden behind my words at times. And I'm kind of, there's some part of me that's saying it's okay to do that because they're a dick, you know?
Yeah.
But if I've forgiven them, I would treat them with the same excellence I try to treat everybody, I think.
With someone that hadn't wronged you.
Yeah. Now, where it gets weird is when you start to talk about trust, because I don't think forgiving means you immediately trust the person again, or put yourself in the same situation that got you hurt the first time. That doesn't mean they have the same access to you in your life. But is that holding something against them?
I don't know.
Or is it just prudence and wisdom?
There's that adage, forgive but never forget.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's, okay, can we do some thought experiments and just tease out our intuitions here? You are, maybe this is an extreme example. It's one of the more extreme ones. Your wife cheats on you. And you find out because she comes to you and tells you, hey, this horrible, I got caught up in something horrible. I've made a terrible mistake. Will you forgive me? Will you forgive me, I think, is a different question than are we going to stay married? Right?
I don't know. Yeah, that's why I'm...
Oh, you don't know?
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
I genuinely don't know.
My intuitions say you can forgive and still draw a boundary. Or like, okay, maybe another example.
But why wouldn't you stay married to them? You're still holding it against them.
Because I think you might do it again. And so I don't want to stay in a situation. Yeah. But then,
so how about this? Maybe at this juncture, let's bring in the notion of apologizing, which I don't know the etymology of. I know in Greek, apologia means a defense. I don't know if it's the same.
I actually don't like when people give a defense.
Right. It sounds
when
like
they're trying to apologize.
When I get, what constitutes a genuine apology? And that might or might not indicate whether I should forgive. I don't know.
Yeah, we got a few things to tease out there. A genuine apology would be one in which, I'm just going to throw this, tell me if it sticks, would be one in which the person offering the apology has genuine regret over the way that they've acted and intention to not act that way in the future. Like learning has occurred.
Yes.
And they've realized, I did something that actually hurt you and maybe hurt me or hurt others. It wasn't best. That was wrong with me. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? That seems like a brilliant apology. That's the dream, is I acknowledge my wrongdoing. I intend to change. Will you facilitate my change by offering to stay in relationship?
Stay in relationship.
See, now then I get wigged about the marriage thing. Staying in relationship. Give me an opportunity to redeem myself, you know? I've wronged you, I've hurt you. Forgive me, and maybe we can make this thing better.
What now on the way over, because I was just kind of stewing over it. I was struck by the thought that it can feel even rude to ask for the forgiveness.
It is. Yep.
Like, don't
put me on the spot.
You now invented a project for me. Right? To ask for forgiveness and to give an apology, or maybe the apology isn't even necessarily asking for forgiveness.
No, separate things.
Separate things.
Separate things.
I'm fine with the apology, but then the further question, which Like at Heartland, we say all the time.
Yeah.
But I had me thinking again, like that we were saying, like, you should do this. Like, I'm sorry, and will you forgive me? And I get what it's doing there. Like, I think there is this supreme goal. Would it be that
reconciliation would be the dream? Yeah.
But there's something about it that also it's not your place to do. Like, don't ask me for it. I'll come to you.
It's private. Right. I will deal with my wounds on my own terms in my own time. The weirdest way I've seen this go down is because it's kind of like Christian. This is kind of like Christian game theory, but like when conflict plays out in a church, the ultimate trump card in Christian circles is to like be as humble as you can, right? And like so, there's this weird. The most powerful play you can do is to give up all your power and ask for forgiveness and just apologize and admit wrongdoing.
Scripture says it's like heaping burning coals on their heads.
Exactly. And I've seen it done like that, where the intent is as a gotcha, like, okay, I'm sorry, will you forgive me?
Imagine a commentator going, oh boy, he pulled out a huge apology there. Let's see how he responds.
He's asking directly for forgiveness. Will he get it? No, he won't. Because like in the heat of the moment, who is ready to say, yes, okay, I forgive you. Like you've just had this big exchange, conflict, you get to an apology.
How inappropriate, just your example of the spouse cheating in the confession at the end of your speech.
And so,
will you forgive me?
Will you forgive me?
What do you do?
I don't know yet.
No, not right now.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing about this. Yeah. I'm not ready to do that.
There have been times when I've said to somebody, I will forgive you. I haven't yet. Oh. And I've just tried to be really honest about like, look, it is my intention that the kind of person I want to be is the kind of person who forgives. I intend to forgive you. Right now I am ravaged with emotional pain and I have not forgiven you.
So
is that really cruel to say to someone?
Well, this is going to tie into like maybe 6 or 7 episodes ago on like, can you change your beliefs just by willing it to happen? Like that was you noticing in yourself something that almost is outside of your control, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yep.
I'm finding myself, no, I have not forgiven you. Mm-hmm. I hope to.
I would like to, yeah.
And you kind of, at least in my experience, I've found myself having been in a state of forgiving them in the sense of, oh, I don't really hold it against that person anymore. The time heals all wounds. So I don't know if that's true, but just that adage, at least on some more minor things, has shown to be the case. Or they just happen to have done other things in that meantime that have increased their esteem in my eyes.
Yep.
And so it just made the other stuff seem so distant and not as salient. And so I just find myself having the belief, oh, I'm not holding what they did way back then against them.
Is that the same as forgiveness though? Or is that just like, I've lost interest? Or like it's so distant from my life today. I find, I haven't thought about that in a while. Yeah, I guess that doesn't bother me so much now.
Like, so I have a story. I had a buddy who obviously will know, if they happen to be listening, would know who they are based on this, but lived down the street from me. And he had come over to my house to play some games. I went over a few days later and noticed one of my computer games on the desk. It had been stolen.
Yeah. Okay.
No effort was taken to hide it. In
brazen theft.
In true fashion for this individual. And so I confronted him and, yes, I had stolen it.
I stole it, man.
And I was upset in the moment.
Yeah.
And now, 15 years later,
it's funny, kind of.
It's kind of a funny story. We've had great experiences since then, and I don't hold them against them at all. It's a treasured memory of you know. Like,
yeah. The context.
But did I really forgive?
Or did it just fade out? Yeah, because forgiveness. I have tried to muster forgiveness, like how about this? Okay, maybe forgiveness doesn't have anything to do with how you feel. Maybe it doesn't have to do with your emotional state. Like I know we just gave the example of I'm looking inward, I found, I haven't forgiven you. But is there any work done by saying the words, I choose, be released, I choose not to hold this against you, even if internally you're still feeling a bit of like, Urgh.
I don't like that at all. That's what I kind of want to resist that.
But now what about that's fine. What about though, the times when like let's just talk about agape love,
Yes.
should be independent of feelings. It's like the times I least feel like serving you is probably when I actually need to serve you the most. It's like it's the very act of choosing to act in another's best interests in spite of your feelings that
But
makes
those are
virtuous.
distinct things you're doing. Whereas like,
Sorry, what are?
I'm not feeling like I love you or
Yeah.
emotionally.
I feel
or
angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love you, and so I'm still gonna serve you in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the what's going on inside, I can do this outward thing,
Yeah.
and still harbor something going on internally. Whereas like the whole thing with forgiveness, isn't that kind of a purely internal thing? It's a state of mind of how I view the person. And so like I could give you this false report, be released,
Great, man.
but nothing genuine happened.
Well, here's where I wonder if maybe this is the crux of what we're trying to figure out is like, is forgiveness, because I am not master of my emotions. I actually can't turn off the anger whenever I want. I mean, I can do some meditative exercise and like focus on the sensation on my breath and distract myself, but anger arises sometimes, you know? And it seems to go away on its own terms as well. And I wonder if like forgiveness for me has been like when I talk about having to do it multiple times for the same offense, it's the choice of I'm actually not going to replay that whole story in my head right now. So I'm doing some housework, I'm painting or something, and this conflict comes back into my head. Remember when they said this and it made you feel like that? And then you should have said this and then you said that, and you start to work up all the feelings. There were many times as I've been working through this stuff where I've thought, no, I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to just deliberately choose to set my mind on something else and not go down the same old trodden path. Not putting my head in the sand, like somebody did something, needs to be dealt with. But especially if you've already had a sit-down conversation, you've aired the grievances, it's clear where the wrongs were. For me, 6 months later, to still be playing out the same story of how they hurt me, is me choosing to set my mind on something else. Does that count as forgiveness? Or is that just distraction? And forgiveness is, no, keep on playing through the story until you feel nothing but love for them. That can't be. That would never happen, man. That would never happen. I have tried thinking about just some stoic exercises about this person, trying to see things from their perspective. That they have children who think that they're a hero, and they are somebody's child, and they have insecurities of their own, and they have this whole life that they're trying to weave, and trying to see, like, can I love that person despite the choices they made? Can I try to see from their perspective and put myself in their shoes and reach a point where I can say I love them? I don't know. It's easier said than done. Maybe I've never forgiven anyone.
Well, I think we're pushing on just the simple ethical claim, like you should forgive someone, or you should be forgiving people that wrong you. And with the ought implies can kind of philosophical principle that if you're going to say you ought to do something, then it means that you must be able to, because you can't have an ethical principle for someone like you ought to fly. I can't fly. I can't. So you can't make that a moral injunction. So I don't know. And this is like outrageously heterodox for sure. Wouldn't apply to theology, but just like as we're just talking out loud, I don't know how possible it is just to flip that switch and the heat of the moment. It's just like, oh yeah, sure, I've forgiven you. I like your examples of down the road. There's this chance to dwell on it, and I'm choosing not to engage.
I'm not going to feed it anymore.
Similar to how like I can be pure or chaste in my marriage and or have fidelity to my wife, and there's opportunities that come to not do that,
right? And
suddenly then I can enter into a brief season of not being
debauchery,
fidelitous or faithful,
sure.
So in thought or whatever, so you could really stew and get yourself worked up into naughtiness if you so chose. So maybe those are kind of parallel things. It's like a state I can I need to keep updated. I need to update the software. I need to stay on top of it and not let those intrusive thoughts kind of start to stir up those
Yeah. I've heard, this is trite, but I've heard it, that refusing to forgive somebody is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You've heard of this? It's pretty cute. Is it true? There is something about the like forgiveness. There's a release of the other person involved, but it frees you in a way. Like when I haven't forgiven somebody, I am bound. I am still like being affected and steered by this thing that happened however long ago. I'm not like they're living rent free in my head, you know? Like so I don't even know if like is forgiveness for the other person's benefit or it's really for your benefit or both. Maybe it's both. I tell you, to not be like to ask for forgiveness and not receive it is a very hard thing.
Dude, I get this. I heard this story. Hopefully I'm allowed to
change your names.
Well, it's just, yeah, I don't even, let's just say I'm making up the story.
It didn't happen.
Someone shared recently that as someone was passing away, that individual revealed to their family that they had been unfaithful in the marriage.
Deathbed confession.
And
rewrite all the history.
And the spouse then, and so they were like in some like Christian hospice place with a picture of Jesus on the wall. And the spouse had hunted down a photograph of this lover and put the picture above the picture of Jesus and said, "You put them over Jesus in life and they will surely be over him in your death." Isn't that outrageous?
Whoa, man.
I had never heard anything like that.
Man, okay, what an explosive story. First of all, I don't know about deathbed confessions, but I haven't been on my deathbed, so I don't know.
But just because you brought up, it can really suck to not have someone accept your apology.
Oh, instead, damn you with a photo. Yeah.
Sorry, just to add some color.
No, that's good. That really brings the issue to life. This is important.
And yeah, it wraps in what you said earlier too about how it affects you, like whether you forgive. It's not purely this other directed activity, and I'm mentally releasing that. Because it's your mind, and when you release something, then now it's taking up less bandwidth, and it residing in there rent free in your head was pulling away your attention, at least sometimes, away from things that should matter more.
Oh yeah.
And how sad for this, both the guy or the fellow and the spouse, in both ways. They're both plagued by it continuously now.
Maybe it's something like we were just talking about, which trains of thought are you feeding? Maybe it's the kind of thing where it's like you facilitate forgiveness and it happens one day. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a plant that you're watering and eventually, it blooms and forgiveness has been achieved. But you can choose to starve the plant or you can choose to water. Like you can choose, am I going to head towards forgiveness? But it just doesn't seem like you can, you can't just flip a switch and muster it.
And maybe that's the answer. Like go out of your way to do things that people that you do for people that haven't wronged you, or take it upon yourself to reconcile. So, and again, like, well, let me finish the thought and then bring in another one.
Yep.
So I don't know, like if you find out they're sick, you offer to bring them a meal, or just these little things where that can start to, as you pour out kindness on them, it softens your heart.
And that's not disingenuous. Like you're not saying I've forgiven you, but secretly harboring feelings. It's like
you can do that in the midst of not feeling the forgiveness and know like I need to do this to achieve.
I'm moving towards forgiveness. Yeah.
Now I don't know how often that's happening, but
yeah,
I mean, that could be. It's a very, very hard thing, but that could be an antidote for that trenchant problem.
One other thing that I've found helpful in moving towards forgiveness is taking some inventory of the ways you have been forgiven, or the ways that I have been forgiven myself. That can make it easier to forgive other people if you can, and it is Nobody wants to do it. It's not a fun exercise to do. But if you can take genuine inventory of the ways that you've hurt other people, or the ways you've hurt other people and been extended forgiveness, you can reflect on your own experiences of grace. It does make it easier to pass it on to others.
So
Yeah.
I think the $50,000 question, though, is, are there some wrongdoing so egregious that it's just not in the card? The forgiveness isn't in the cards. We're like these huge things, like a rape, a murder of a family member. Now there's stories of it happening.
I know
People have done it, and they're quite moving.
Yep.
The one I frequent is Jim Elliot, the different missionaries.
Tell it. Tell the story.
Okay.
Nobody knows it.
Yeah. Jim Elliot was a missionary in the 50s, I want to say. I'm going to get some of the details wrong. Apologies. But him and 4 other men were trying to spread the gospel of Jesus to this tribe, the Aucans or the Aucas.
I don't know.
In South America near the Amazon.
Seems right.
And totally unreached. That's kind of an insider Christian word, like that. No one has really
Isolated tribesmen.
isolated. They haven't heard about Jesus at all. No Bible in their language or anything. So they, this is important to them. They want these people to know the hope to be found in Jesus. So they do some flyovers with this little yellow plane and drop care packages down just to show like we
Friendly.
mean well.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's you want this stuff. This is food.
Yep.
I think they had even a little encounter. I think a couple of them had landed and went to meet with them once, and then like, hey, we're gonna bring the rest of the gang next time. They go back for a follow-up visit. The tribesmen didn't like that initial visit, thought it was all just a little bit voodoo and like they were demonic, and speared them to death on the beach, leaving 4 widows and a bunch of kids fatherless.
Brutal.
Turns out, Nate. Oh man, I wish I could get the details right. Nate Saint either is the son or the dad who died on the beach. So I'm so sorry that I'm going to bungle it, but
It's all right. It's off the cuff.
let's just say, no, Nate's the dad. Steve Saint is the son. I want to say I'm locking it in.
All right. Lock it in.
So Steve Saint, obviously, like there is this guy Min Kayani who that
tribesman.
I'm pretty sure about is right. He's one of the tribesmen that was there spearing his dad Nate, and so like decades later, Steve goes back to this Aucan tribe and
Son of the murdered father.
builds relationship with the tribe, and like eventually befriends Min Kayani, and they're best buddies.
The guy who killed his dad. Crazy.
And then part of the story, like Min Kayani accepts Jesus as his savior, and they speak at conferences about this story. There's something
Very powerful about
about it.
Yeah.
It's tragic and beautiful at the same time.
Yep.
And I mean, I want to say good for Steve Saint.
That was
good
good
on
to
you.
forgive him. Yeah.
You could have, and maybe it is more about. I hesitate to make it so selfish in nature, but you could have had a much worse life, harboring hate, and let's just even say it might have been justified hate for your whole life, and whereas on this other version, you've engaged in this thing we're calling forgiveness, where you choose not to hold such an egregious thing against this person, and you found a friend, and it's a powerful tool to get people thinking about how they need to forgive in their own life.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, my neighbor didn't spear my dad to death.
Right.
Maybe I can forgive her for gossiping in the neighborhood or whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So your question was, are there some things so horrendous that you shouldn't forgive them?
Or that it's in a like,
Or that it's not going to happen? You're not going to be able to. Too intense. Is that what you mean?
I do, and I'm particularly thinking of like maybe cases of rape or something where it just seems so like violating, and that it's to even suggest that you have a duty to forgive is like, oh, dude, are you serious?
I'm the victim. Yeah.
Not victim blaming, but it's
Just giving them a task. but well, you have a duty to forgive.
But I'm saying people say that. Churches say that all the time. You ought to forgive.
I feel like, okay,
can we do this? You
this?
said at the beginning, because you've been forgiven. That's the reasoning.
No. Okay, yeah, people say that. How can I throw this at you? In the same way that like, I just said this on Sunday in that sermon, is like, if we think about the sin as poison view again, the reason you ought to is because if you don't, you will harbor hate in your heart for your life, and then you'll have a life where you were hate-filled. Who wants that? Who wants a life where you're stewing in hate constantly? No. The better way is, if you can, to forgive as much as it takes. That's where the life is.
And maybe the judo move here is just to like, let's strip away any like scaffolding around like, here's the time frame that it has to be done in, or like, if you leave this church service before you've really forgiven your assaulter,
no,
then you're lost or something. Like, no, some of these things are very, very deep, and you're not ready.
Yeah, you might need years of therapy to come to terms with what happened.
But that's a laudable goal. Like you would feel comfortable saying like and all in pastoral tact.
Yes,
that you would. The trajectory is forward.
For your ultimate healing. I think you should head towards
but not
forgiveness.
That the person is owed it.
Oh, that the perpetrator is owed forgiveness?
Particularly in the
I think that's the whole point, is they're not owed anything. They don't deserve it. They did the wrong thing. I don't think
in the case where a genuine apology has been issued.
You're asking, can you ever be morally obligated to forgive someone? Is that it? Or are you morally obligated to forgive?
Yeah, we'll put that out. I think, yeah. And maybe not. That's where this question comes in about how egregious the thing is. But I mean, when I think about the very slight wrongings, then I think absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
My son, who says something mean.
Yeah.
Oh, just today. My son, Jack.
What did he say?
I was getting ready. Sarah was changing him. He was getting ready to go down for a nap, and I went in to go say goodnight, and he said, "Don't bother me while I'm in my room."
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
Jeez.
Okay.
Now he's 3, and he barely knows what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
But it would be, right, for you to hold that against him would
that's sick.
Be really strange and
sick and wrong.
Immoral, yeah. Yeah, okay. But who wants to tell somebody you have an obligation to forgive your rapist?
I don't want to say that.
I don't want to say that. No, and I wouldn't. I wouldn't say it
Yeah.
in those words, even if I thought it.
But
why?
Maybe you would just twist it like is it just the same rationale in both, that it would just be bad for me to like I'd have a bad life if I harbored that my whole life?
Does that tell the whole story? No, it doesn't tell the whole story. Because
my son
to
does
your
not
point,
deserve to have his father not forgive him for such a small thing.
Well, and to your point, something very powerful can happen when reconciliation is achieved, like you just told in that story about Jim Elliot and his mates. If old Steve-O had forgiven Mayanaka, or whatever his name was,
Min Kayani.
Yeah, Min Kayani. If Steve had forgiven him but never traveled back, Min Kayani never knows about what he's done or the forgiveness that's been offered. That whole transformation doesn't take place, and it feels like something good is lost there.
You know what? Now that you're saying that, now I feel like there's this. I don't like the binary "have you forgiven, haven't you" spectrum.
Great. This is what I was hinting at before. Maybe it's
so in that story, the version where Steve never returns to the jungle to confront and befriend Min Kayani, it's an untested forgiveness. Cool. You're just reporting that this happened in your mind,
and right now,
and I guess I'll just trust you that that's the case, and that might have happened, but I'm sure there is something about like when you
see him.
run that counterfactual for yourself to see if it really is genuine and in your mind. And maybe it's like these gradations that
Yeah.
I'm not holding this against you to the point where I'm not going to talk bad about you to other people, but I don't want to be friends with you. And now there's this next step where, okay, now we could go get a beer together. All right. Now, and then you move along the line. Reconciliation and friendship is such that it's not a binary, one or the other.
Yeah, right.
Relationships are,
They are fluid.
intimacy is on a spectrum. And so no doubt forgiveness would be as well. If really what it is it's a mental attitude of how I view a person.
So Jesus' instruction to forgive as many times as you need to is an admonition to move a particular direction on the spectrum. Move increasingly towards forgiveness to the best of your ability at the time.
And the reasoning, I think it's Jesus who says it, I want to say. Because the reason to do it is because you've been forgiven. Is that in the Bible? Or
He
do
definitely
people just say
warns that if you don't forgive, then Father won't forgive you in Matthew 7. He definitely does that.
Yeah.
Forgive and you will be forgiven. But if you don't...
Yeah. But it's not in there that you
Because you
forgive
have been
because you've been forgiven.
We say it a lot.
That's got to be in there.
I don't know if it's in there. We should do an episode on that. Is it in the Bible or not? And quote a bunch of stuff. Because we had some fun ones, actually.
We've each hooked each other on some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone fact check us in the comments on that. Does Jesus say forgive because you have been forgiven? Or does he only do it in the threat way in Matthew where it's like, you better forgive or you won't be forgiven? I don't know.
I think they're both in there.
Maybe. Okay. We'll find out.
But, I mean, let's just say it is. What do you think of that?
Forgive because you have been forgiven. Again, like I said earlier, meditating on my own shortcomings and graces that I have received does seem to facilitate my movement down the spectrum.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, look, I'm talking in such guarded language now.
But it's a reason. I think, let's just take that statement as present in the scripture, like that it's giving a justification for this ought. You ought to forgive because basically, who are you to not forgive someone?
Yeah.
Given that you have
you
done
apparently
so much
believe
wrong.
in forgiveness when it's offered to you. So offer it to other people.
But again, I don't think it's saying do it on the spot.
Yeah.
Right when they demand it from an apology,
Yeah,
or ask for it.
at time like that again. There would be situations where to immediately forgive like that would make me suspect mental illness or something.
Right.
You know, like
You don't, yeah.
someone just killed Ollie and then immediately says, "Sorry, will you forgive me?" And I say yes. I need to go to prison, like right away.
You as the victim of the
negligence. Something's wrong there.
You need help. Oh man. Well, maybe just as we close, maybe if we can try to wrap it into more social collective bits.
Oh, you mean like we started with what does it mean for somebody to have a path to redemption after a public failing or issuing a public apology? Well, we just heard this too, even in the church, about moral failings in the church and how that can go sideways and how that's
not
often
in our church.
Oh no, not in our
the
church.
Broader.
We heard about how
church.
it can happen in the capital C church and and I think a lot of churches don't think it through until it happens to them. What is the path to redemption? Assuming that somebody, say on staff, does seem genuinely remorseful, issues an apology, wants to change and or is taking steps to change. The story very often is, well, we're going to fire you and you should probably go worship somewhere else. And that, I don't know if that sits very well with me, man. Like,
can the gravity of the wrongdoing be such that it's not prudent? Like
yeah. I think so.
Like the case we heard the word like dark manipulation a lot. And so like to even have the person around would be triggering.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine there's situations where there's like safety calls and stuff. If it's someone in kids ministry who's been doing stuff they shouldn't, like there needs to be clear boundaries. But it just makes me sad how often what you hear is lead pastor screws up again. what a joke. They're all hypocrites. And you very rarely hear about like lead pastor screws up, admits it, is forgiven by congregation, and becomes a better person as a result. Like you don't hear that story.
Yeah.
What you hear is they failed. Yeah, I knew they would eventually get him out of here. And that's just so sad because like I'm on staff at a church. I am filled with moral failings. Every day I fail morally. So I am sympathetic to those in church leadership and where that line is. So yeah, I don't know. The sincerity of the apology seems important versus just like I got pressured into apologizing. Like a mob came after you. Like I don't know the Joe Rogan situation that well.
Yeah.
I listened to Sam's episode on it, but I think he got mobbed on Twitter about racist stuff. He made racist jokes years ago and has acknowledged like, hey, yeah, that was pretty bad what I did years ago. Sorry about that.
Use of the N-word. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then some people, that's not enough. They smell blood in the water. They want him deplatformed and shut this guy down, despite a genuine apology. And that seems over the top.
Yeah. But even just it's a fascinating thing, the collective forgiveness or what that really even means. There's not some person who's just going to be the arbiter and say, all right, yeah, Joe has been...
He's okay. He's been cleared.
He's been forgiven.
Yeah. Like do a Twitter poll.
Right.
Like, do we forgive Joe?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have much more on that, but...
Well, I remember us talking about this years ago. This is maybe just a brief aside before we land the plane. Can you forgive somebody for the way they wronged someone else?
Exactly.
You know?
Very good. Yeah.
Like,
well, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, right. It seems like I could forgive Joe Rogan if Joe Rogan wronged me in some way.
Yes.
But he has never wronged me in any way.
And nothing about this current controversy.
So there's no need for me to forgive Joe. And I mean, that's the stance you brought to the table years ago. I think at the time I was working with a definition of forgiveness that was a little more basically like maybe synonymous with agape. Like, can you forgive Hitler? And your stance was no, because you're not a Jew and you weren't in a gas chamber and Hitler didn't wrong you, so you can't forgive him.
But I could still, the phenomenon of holding against.
That's what I want to say. Yeah.
Very much so.
You can hold it against him. So could you release him from that?
If that person has made an apology.
Did we clear up whether you need the apology first to forgive? Can you forgive someone who never apologized to you?
Yes.
I think you can.
Yes.
I think you can. So you can forgive Hitler.
Why do I feel like I keep inserting that little addendum? If they've apologized.
Yeah, I don't know. Genuine remorse makes forgiveness easier, maybe.
Well, maybe it makes more sense in the case of these public things because when you've been wronged, it just seems far more likely that is going to cause you mental turmoil.
Anguish.
It's now a problem you're dealing with.
Yep.
In a way that someone who did something to someone else over there, it can, particularly these something really dark.
Yeah. Might stick with you.
I'm not.
I don't do it. I'll say I don't do it. Like, okay, we've all heard about Charles Manson, and he did some horrendous things. And when I think about it, it bothers me. Mm-hmm. But I don't often think about it, so I'm not often bothered by what Charles did.
Yeah. Or how about let's say I don't know the details of Charles Manson.
I haven't forgiven Charles. I don't think.
What did he do? Murder?
I think, yeah, a bunch of girls.
Murders.
Bunch of girls. Not a couple. I think he did a lot.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Crazy dude. Freaky, actually.
The pictures.
Well, no, have you listened to him?
No.
Dude, YouTube Charles Manson sometime. Dude is off his rocker. Think like your classic homeless, manic, like bipolar, just mouth, like crazy guy.
So you haven't forgiven Charles?
I haven't forgiven Charles yet.
Like in that you hold it against him.
In that as I think about, I think about Charles, I think, gosh, he did some horrible things and that upsets me. I also think there's an element of tragedy to his life and like seeing his brokenness of mind.
Surely that's almost always there.
Yeah, that just, there's something in me that's like, but still was created in the image of God and it could have been so much better than it was. there's still like I still see value in Charles. I still value him. Does that mean I forgive him?
That's so funny, dude. It's a really weird conversation.
Not where I expected it to go.
How about someone who's alive, like a Bill Cosby?
Okay. Yeah, Cosby.
Who did really nasty.
Have you forgiven Cosby?
Well, I just don't know. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
You hold it against him, what he did.
Yeah.
And maybe you're wise to do that. Is that right?
I hold it against. Maybe that's not.
You're letting it in.
The resolution on that isn't as fine as I want it to be.
You're letting it inform your opinion of him.
I hold him in less esteem. I view his character, his moral fiber, as less fibrous than I once did.
You think about him as being
and that seems
wicked.
All perfectly justified.
That's fine.
Now, a genuine apology can make it more fibrous again.
Yep.
And then relapse against the apology. Now
destroys some fibers again.
But none of that strikes me as forgiveness. It's
yeah, that's something else, right? Forgiveness does seem very personal. Mm-hmm. You forgive the one who wronged you, and you can. Yeah.
I'd love to hear if someone wrote in and gave a stalwart defense of how you can forgive people that haven't wronged you.
Yeah,
like just how that works conceptually.
Please, I mean, maybe there's a story in your life. It's like something we're missing, some situation that we haven't thought of where that makes sense. The Cosby thing is one deal. Like Cosby hasn't wronged me, but if it was my kid, it's still not me. But there, I do feel like maybe I need to forgive. Okay. It's closer to me. He's wronged me by proxy, like through my son somehow, or like.
And because of the special bond between parent and child.
Maybe. Don't you have that sense as well?
But now you have me worried that I just have a very low love of neighbor.
That could be. And you're not concerned with how other neighbors have been wronged, so you're not forgiving their perpetrators. Because you're not that emotionally bothered by your neighbors being wronged.
But does Bill have to ask for my forgiveness?
No.
He can just do it carte blanche. Anyone not the victims as well. I also apologize to you.
For having to...
For wronged your fellow man.
Or that that my deeds had to enter your mind has caused you, because of the degree of their horror, has caused you suffering. So forgive me for that. This is not as clear as I...
No, it's tough. And now
expected it to be, yeah.
Well, then we run the risk of blowing wide open just how my actions leave consequences out in the world and how quickly the web travels.
Yep.
I don't know the fallout of some of my actions, and I'm sure I owe people an apology.
Who needs to forgive you out there?
That I don't know of,
Yep.
Well, I think I moved the needle on my understanding of it. And
we explored the terrain.
We explored a big idea, and I discovered some truth with you.
We did it together then.
Yeah.
Great. We fit our mission.
Yeah, so if you have anything else to add about forgiveness and apologizing, I think just as I was talking about it, it struck me as more important even than when I first embarked.
Great.
It's just, I want to think more carefully about it, and because it's something we do.
Yeah.
We're engaged in a lot.
Yep.
Either for better or worse.
So if you have a good example, if you have a story or something you'd be willing to share, we always want to hear your stories. We love that. So you can leave a comment if you're comfortable doing that on YouTube, or you can write to us, mailbag@openatruth.com. We'll have a mailbag episode coming up here soon. So we'd love to hear from you. How has forgiveness worked in your life? Do you have any tips of like how to move down the spectrum of forgiveness more rapidly or more effectively? We'd love to hear that too. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Stay curious.